different story for you this morning, 8:35, and this is all about Huawei. Talking about that again, a parliamentary inquiry has concluded that there is actually clear evidence of collusion between Huawei and the Chinese Communist Party apparatus. MPs say the government may need to bring forward a deadline set for the Chinese firm's 5G kit to be removed from all the UK's mobile networks. Huawei has responded by saying this report lacks credibility as it's built on opinion rather than facts, so they refute it. Well, in a moment, we'll talk to Jamal Ahmed, who is a security and privacy consultant, also a regular contributor on tech privacy to The Independent and NBC. But first, let's speak to the BBC's security correspondent. Gordon Corera joins us now. Gordon, thank you for being here. I think a lot of us have taken our eyes off the ball when it comes to 5G. So tell us more about this report. Pretty damning conclusions, right?
It is. It's from the Defence Select Committee. They've been looking into this for a while, took evidence from a lot of places, and what they basically conclude is that there is this evidence, they say, of collusion, of a link between Huawei and the Chinese Communist Party. Now, they're quite careful in terms of what evidence they talk about, that it's not necessarily evidence of espionage or sabotage, but just links, for instance, because of the subsidies the company receives and the history of the company. So that's one point. The second point is, well, Huawei is supposed to be out of the 5G network by 2027 anyway here in the UK, but they're saying there's a chance that could need to be brought forward 2 years if relations with China deteriorate further. And there's this warning that China's been trying to pressure the UK, perhaps trying to use threats of withdrawing from the economy and investments. And so Britain needs to do more to think about where China is allowed to invest in case there are risks of retaliation. So it's quite a sweeping report. It doesn't necessarily provide new evidence of Huawei spying, though. And the company, as you said, basically says this is just the opinion of critics of the company, which the Defence Select Committee have just taken on board.
Yeah, really interesting stuff. All the while, though, we know, don't we, that Huawei is still trying to sell its 5G telecoms and infrastructure to other parts of Europe. Will that affect that?
Yeah, that's really where the big debate is now, because it seems relatively closed what's happening in the UK. But, other European countries are currently deciding and making their decisions about whether to allow Huawei to build 5G. And really, this is a global issue. It's a global issue about how big the company grows, and the US is clearly worried about that. And one of the things in the report is this call to have more competitors, to actually try and get allies to work together so that we don't have to rely on China to provide some of this equipment.
It's interesting, isn't it? The report also says that the Chinese government had financed the growth of Huawei with some £57 billion over the past 3 years. I suppose some people might argue it's not unusual for governments to support business.
No, and I think that's really where a lot of the debate is about Huawei's role with the Chinese state. Is this basically normal support, or is the Chinese state, as critics would say, using Huawei and giving it support in order to grow around the world to kind of create a dominant position? Where's the kind of balance between those two things? And is it really a national security issue, or is it an economic issue? But certainly it is about that global growth of Huawei around the world, and the fact that it's going to be, and already is, in telecoms networks in many, many countries. Clearly that's worried some people in national security, particularly in the United States. But there is this economic argument that it's also about America kind of fearing the rise of China economically and wanting to push back at that. And Huawei is a kind of seen by America as a Chinese champion. They want to do something about it and take the company down a bit. So there's a really interesting mix of economic issues and national security issues when it comes to Huawei.
Yeah, it's really nuanced, isn't it? And it seems to me, kind of listening to that, you've got China on one side, you've got America or UK, as we're talking about now, on the other side, and in the middle is Huawei, like protesting their innocence. I don't know the truth of that one, but will this really affect their business, or have they got enough going on elsewhere?
I think the US has placed sanctions on Huawei, and that is potentially very serious, because what they're doing is they're restricting Huawei's ability to use American technology. Now, of course, we think of the phones being built in China and the kit, but they're actually using semiconductor technology. The chips inside it are using American designs, American techniques, American intellectual property. So actually that squeeze which the US is putting on Huawei is really significant for Huawei's business. and is really potentially hurting the company. And that's the reason why they were excluded from the UK. So the reason why this decision was made a few months ago to say they're going to be out of 5G by 2027 was because of this chips issue. Because basically the UK went, well, if you can't use American technology, we don't know what technology you're going to be using. We don't know if we can trust it. Therefore, we've got to exclude you. So the squeeze is real, and I think this battle between the US and China with Huawei, particularly in America's sites, is major, and it's not over yet.
Interesting stuff, Gordon. Thank you so much for putting us in the picture this morning. That is the BBC security correspondent, Gordon Corera, bringing us the latest. Let's pick up on some of those points now. Let's talk to Jamal Ahmed, a security and privacy consultant. Thank you, Jamal, for joining us as well this morning. I think, for a layperson that doesn't know a lot about 5G, it'd be good to actually go back to basics. Like, what are we worried about?
So, good morning, Anna. What we're really worried about here is the national security for us in the UK. So, China, Huawei, a Chinese company, provides hardware that we use as part of our telecommunication networks. And that includes things that go on the peripherals, such as the antennas, and it also includes some of the stuff that's closer to the data centers. Now, because it's a Chinese company, there is a piece of legislation in China which can compel any Chinese company to hand over data to the Chinese government at any time. And that's one of the things that the government here is actually worried about. And a few months ago, we saw the decision to ban Huawei from all 5G networks from the end of this year, from stopping buying anything and to strip everything out by 2027.
And it's an interesting one, isn't it? Obviously, I'm not asking you if it will be done, but presumably it can be done. Like, supplying bits and electronic cables and all the rest of it. I can't sort of give you the technical words, but is it commonplace then that this kind of stuff happens?
So it isn't common for governments to ban such large companies. So Huawei is the leading provider when it comes to providing telecommunications peripherals for 5G networks. In fact, they've spent more on research and development than both of their competitors put together, and they're years ahead of that. The challenge here is the distrust that the Five Eyes network have and the UK has with the pressure from the US, and also given the abuses of the human rights when it comes to the Uyghur community, for example. The UK said we don't want to do business with Huawei.
So they might, we'll talk about other firms, haven't we, kind of stepping into the breach to provide the 5G network, but presumably we'd need to be confident that they wouldn't do the same thing.
Yeah, so I mean, the other competitors are European-based. We've also got Samsung as well, who has recently stepped up to the picture. But there's Ericsson and Nokia who can provide us with other parts that we can use for the services. However, we do see that the bosses from BT and Vodafone say if they are forced to strip out the network 2 years earlier than the initial 5 years or at the end of 2027 that was agreed prior to that, there may be blackouts for people on some of our networks.
Really? It could be as serious as that?
It could be. They say there could be outages if they're forced to accelerate the plans to strip out the networks.
Problem is we've become so reliant on these networks, haven't we?
Yeah, I mean, we live in a data-driven economy now, and we increasingly, as we look forward, we really rely on our connections, our 5G connections, our internet, to run everything from the Internet of Things all the way to do our shopping, send our emails, communicate, even ordering food now. People are using technology, Uber Eats, Just Eats, to make sure that they can be fed when they go home in the evenings.
Do we need 5G?
So, do we need 5G? It's an interesting question. I believe as the future unfolds and unravels and at the speed that we're going at, 5G is going to be the way forward. Driverless cars, faster internet, no buffering, no streaming, being able to do so much more. 5G does bring some great capabilities that we will enjoy and benefit. And when we see other parts of the world enjoying the benefits of 5G, and the UK, given the position that we're meant to be on the global scale, it would be very strange not to have that technology at that level as well.
Jamal, listen, thank you so